Hey, we're back from break. So yeah, we just had to take care of something real quick. But yeah, we're back. But back to what I was saying before is that there's always a point where you have a storyline where these guys had in George Lucas and previous generations great writers like J.R.R. Tolkien, C.S. Lewis. Because he's a bit more he's much more experienced and a little bit more seasoned than us. You could even say George R. Martin. They understand what it takes to write a really good storyline. And what I see that happens is that we have our modern day storyline tellers, you know, they've kind of rushed the process. They want the ending product in the first chapter. It's like playing Super Metroid, right? Remember back in the day you played Metroid and you had to go through all these different challenges, build up Samus Aran, and then eventually you get to the very end and you fight Mother Brain and whatever. These guys don't want to do that. Yeah. They want to start off from the very beginning with the Game Genie. Old school gaming for you guys who don't know. They want to start off with all of the codes. They want to start off with the invincibility. They want to start off with the best gun. They want to start off, and it leads to a very boring storyline. The hero has to overcome objectives, has to overcome challenges. Otherwise, that's not really a hero.
Yeah.
That's just somebody flexing all day.
Yeah, and then it gets boring because, obviously you don't want to start a character off overpowered, to where they come in and everything is trivialized for them. And then the first time that they run into a issue, you're like, okay, man, now it's here, it's an actual fight. And then, he just still ultimately comes through it and it's like, okay, well, what do you do?
I didn't see that coming.
It's like, what do you do? How do you do it? It's like, for instance, one story that I can get away with it because it is mostly satire is One Punch Man.
Yeah.
The whole point of him being Saitama the One Punch Man is that, we know as readers and as watchers that Saitama broke his limiter when he got into his very first fight against like Crab Dude. And then once he started to actually work out and lost all of his hair, because that was a part of him breaking his, his quote unquote limits, is that he lost his hair, but he's super powerful now. Everything is like it's not even worth it. And that right there is what bothers him because he's looking for someone who could take more than one punch.
Yeah.
He's looking for someone who can actually make him try. And so far in the series, no one has been able to.
He fantasizes about
it. He fantasizes like at the end of the first episode, the mole people, when he's having that dream. He's like, yeah, he's getting jacked up only for it to be a dream. But then even in the reality, when there are actual mole folks outside of his room, he's like, oh, okay, he jumps down there and one punches the dude all over again. He's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
He's deflated again. So it works there because they're telling a satire storyline.
Yeah.
It's not serious. Versus the characters around Saitama, it is actually serious for like them. You do get pulled in by Genos. You get pulled in by Terrible Tornado, by, Atomic Samurai. You are learning about these different guys who actually do have to put in work to actually, to actually be there for what is going on. Because again, when the meteor is falling, you see Bang and he's there, but then you're like, okay, so what is Bang going to do? Bang is just watching. Ultimately, Bang knew that he couldn't do anything. He was really just there to accept the fate. But then you see Saitama jump up there and punch the meteor, to where, okay, he saved most of Z City, but a lot of it still got banged up from the residual rocks from him blowing it up. And so, again, ultimately, yes, is it about Saitama being satire? Of course. But the main storyline is about the other heroes surrounding him, the ones who are actually putting in the work. Because if it was just about Saitama, it ultimately would be a boring series.
Well, I mean, I think just as well, a story like One Punch Man works because it's making fun of everything we've ever invested in with comic books. I see the X-Men. I see Superman and the Justice League. I see the Fantastic Four. I even see bits of Spider-Man. I see Dragon Ball Z. I see Naruto. I see. But what I love about One Punch Man is I believe, who was the guy who always pretended like he's the hardest dude on the squad?
King.
King is too much because his heart is beating so loud. People are thinking that's a jungle beat.
Exactly.
It's like, no, the dude is
The
scared to death.
King engine.
I mean, and what they're doing is that they're making fun of it, because you got to understand, they're trying to inject some reality into this abject fantasy world. Like, you see aliens descending from outer space and they're knocking over buildings with the mere brush of their shoulder. But this King character, he's supposed to be so strong, so terribly powerful, that he makes everybody feel like he's going to do something big, but he never does, because he's terrified. And his heart is beating so loud, you can literally hear it. They're thinking King of the Jungle. No, this is the King of the Chickens. I mean,
but that's why, like, for that particular storyline, that sort of thing works.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because the writing and the narration of the series makes you very aware that we're aware of the fact that
Yes.
this is our thing.
Yes.
With this particular storyline. But it doesn't work with everyone else. Like, I think that's one of those reasons why Superman always found it, difficult to have interesting storylines, or interesting villains, for that matter. Everybody has to have kryptonite
Exactly.
for
Yeah.
anybody to put up a fight against Superman. And the idea that the common thug all of a sudden has kryptonite on him becomes a little bit ridiculous. So it's like, how do you make a storyline interesting where the main character can't be beat?
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
Or the Hulk might have the same, sort of problems with storytelling, because again, it's sort of like, that's sort of like where maybe I don't like Avengers Infinity War storytelling so much, where it's like, well, now they had to take the Hulk out of the equation by, making it to where, the Hulk doesn't want to come out. He and Bruce Banner are feuding between each other. And that's why the Hulk is unavailable.
Oh, the Hulk got bounced off that concrete by Thanos.
Yeah. And so, like, now, and I think that's the problem when you have really powerful characters like that, is that there's always like this shtick where,
Now I have to make up a
this
reason.
guy is like unavailable because this. I remember watching the show Heroes.
Yes, exactly.
And Hiro Nakamura
And Peter Petrelli.
They're the two most powerful characters.
Walking nukes.
Yeah.
And
all of a sudden, Hiro could never control his abilities. So he would always get trapped in time somewhere else, where it was just like, man, like, it would be nice if this guy could control his abilities, because then he could contribute. Or same thing with Peter. It's like, he can't control his abilities.
And then he learns to control his abilities, and then his dad comes back and takes his abilities from him, and it was like,
so it's like, I think there's a balance between that sort of storytelling, and One Punch Man doesn't really have to reach the balance at this point, because it's like, that's the purpose of the show.
Exactly.
Whereas a Superman, it's like no, it's actually the struggle of good storytelling in the show is that, well, who can even fight Superman? Like,
Exactly.
you're saying Lex Luthor's his main villain, but the dude's a human being. So, like, what's he gonna do?
What's he gonna do? And then you have to keep bringing in these crises. That one. Okay. Well, now it's a planetary devastation, because now it's not just affecting this part. Now Superman gets taken away, so that way the bad guy can come and do this. And right when the bad guy's about to succeed, Superman comes back in. It's like, come on. Or you have to bring in someone who can actually fight him, which is the Brainiac, which is the dark side. And then it's like, okay, but then how? But realistically, how much longer can you keep on bringing in characters of this magnitude to go against a Superman?
See, the thing about it though is that in the comic books though, and this is where I feel like it's kind of like, remember when we used to watch One Piece when it was through 4 kids? Like, One Piece is trash. One Piece is trash. One Piece is trash. And I'd always tell y'all, man, that show is #1 in Japan for a reason. It doesn't make any sense that it's this trash. And then sure enough, we do our research. We find out it's actually amazing. And then you're like, whoa, I'm a huge fan of it now. The problem with Superman is that, to me, in my opinion, Warner Brothers and DC Comics have done a terrible job of representing that character. Because if you're a Superman fan, you know that the movies never quite got it right. And even like the cartoons that took place in the 90s, because they were not the cartoons of the 80s. The 80s Superman's cartoons were amazing. I remember those shows. They never quite got it right. They even admitted themselves they toned down Superman for the cartoon because they couldn't create a storyline that would make sense for Superman to exist within the animated world. And so my big issue is that Superman has a lot of psychology and there's a lot of braininess to Superman. Like I have a couple Superman story arcs that were really, really great. But the problem is that they're not writing at that level. Not all the writing is going to be at that level. And that's where it gets, how we're talking about what makes a bad storyline. Let's talk about it. You have, prime example, Scott Snyder writes the New 52 Batman. And it is absolutely amazing. I mean, guys, look, it is the highlight of the New 52. Everybody hates everything else New 52. And I understand why. But I particularly love Scott Snyder's Batman and the Justice League. New 52 had it going on with that. I don't care what anybody says. From the Dark Side War to the Court of Owls to
I personally like the New Gods storyline.
Yes, it was great. It was absolutely great.
I like that one.
But then what happens is you have these insufficient writers, or it's just like the X-Men. The X-Men are going through essentially a golden age over there at Marvel right now, but you wouldn't know it because, hey, you decided I'm going to go pick up Hellions, or I'm going to go pick up X-Force, or I'm going to go pick up one of these titles that isn't the mainstream of the title. It's been written by the main writer of the series, right? Because it's like you could go read Chris Claremont's X-Men, right? And allegedly, Chris Claremont, who's a great writer, had beef with Jim Lee. So what Chris Claremont was known to do was that he'd write a novel over this ridiculous spread by Jim Lee. It'd be like box here, box there, and it's covering up Wolverine's claws and stuff like that, like all these amazing scenes. And Jim Lee is like, I can't work with this dude. It was incredible. They had great storyline and great art, but they couldn't work together because he's like, the star of the X-Men series is clearly my art. And Claremont is like, no, it's my storytelling. They didn't realize that the two of them had something great going together. All they do is just figure out a way to work it all out.
Yeah.
And so what makes a bad storyline is inconsistent writing. Yeah. You look at the Star Wars, as we mentioned earlier. It's just the inconsistencies. Yeah. If they don't know today, they want the power suit at the beginning. They don't want the journey of the hero. Oh, well, we've been there, we've done that. We shouldn't have to do that again. We shouldn't have to do that. Then it's like, then what's the point in telling a story?
I think that's also why you don't retell the same story. Exactly. Like Star Wars, I think, to that point, it's like Episode 7 was a retelling of Episode 4.
Yeah. Instead of Tatooine, it's Jakku.
Yeah, and they didn't have to do that. Like one of the reasons why I really like the whole Avatar, The Legend of Korra series was it felt like season 1 of Legend of Korra was different from what they did with The Last Airbender. And then they were, from my understanding, only anticipating actually creating one season. And then fans started asking for seasons 2, 3, and 4, and that's when they created those. And so even with season 2, they didn't really just try to go and do a retread of season 1. It was like something completely different. Yeah. And there were problems with their storytelling. I think in season 3, like that was probably maybe arguably the best season was season 3, besides 1, really. Yeah. 1 was probably the best, and then maybe season 3 was the second. But even in season 3, you
had some questionable storytelling.
Zahir becoming a sort of airbender master overnight. Was kind of questionable.
And then he's not taking out Joe Blow benders at all. He's taking out the White Lotus.
Yeah, and that's one of those things where it's like they do things to sort of fast track a storyline. Like, hey, we got 13 episodes to tell the story. Let's get it going. And same thing with, I think, season 2, where I really like season 2 was like the weak season, in my opinion, but I still like that they were trying to do something different with the spirits. And my biggest problem with that season though was that Korra seemed her character growth was inconsistent. Like in the first season, it was like you're trying to hold me back, and then like near the end, it's like okay, I can see what you guys are doing. And then the second season, you're trying to hold me back, and it's just like, dude, if you just want her to go with those guys and ditch her dad, just say so.
Exactly.
Like you don't have to always create a dumb reason. Like you could have,
because therefore again you have the Cheetor aspect, which is what I talking about in the beginning. He already learned the lesson the first time. Now he's repeating the same.
It's just a growth and regression,
exactly, over and over again.
Why?
Because even by season 3, again, but when we're going against Zaire, it's like okay, did he ultimately lose the woman he loved and then he learned how to fly? Okay, yes, he lost all attachments, and it was cool that they couldn't just take out Aang's son. What was his name? What's his name?
Tenzin.
Tenzin. There you go. Tenzin. They couldn't just, because even though they were all strong, Tenzin was giving them that work. Individually, he was whooping them. It wasn't until they all ganged up on him that Tenzin lost. And so, okay, that's consistent. What wasn't consistent is that, again, first season, you have Amon, right? The bloodbender. He's giving her all that work. Why? Because she hadn't achieved the Avatar state. By the end of that season, as soon as she achieved the Avatar state, she wiped the floor with Amon, and it made sense. The Avatar state is the ultimate state of the Avatar. There's like, come on, stop. But you have it to where she again, season 3, she's going through all of these different things, learning, and growing. She has a whole character transformation through season 3 to where you finally get to the Amon fight, and she's still getting whooped. And it's like, I mean, Zaire fight, and it's like, and she's still getting whooped by this guy. And I was like, okay, I understand that he's, the best airbender we've pretty much, ever seen, because he can fly. He doesn't need the Avatar set like Aang needed to fly. Like this guy is the best airbender we've seen. I'll give him that. He has his props. But this is the Avatar. This is someone through 2 seasons now who learned growth in the first season, learned about the spirits in the second season. No. There's no way that she should be getting challenged. Like, I'm sorry. Yeah, there's no way.
But I think one of the problems as well is like to sort of anoint someone to be, he's the greatest airbender there's ever been after less than 2 months.
2 months, exactly.
The abilities.
I'll also say this too. I think that what does happen is you get these writers who are commissioned to write storylines within a short period of time, and to some degree or another, they don't really get to know the storyline and the rules. I know I keep saying the rules, but it's kind of like, okay, imagine, if you will, we know that in Naruto, for example, they have the 5 or 6, 7 different elements, right? 7 different elements. And then out of nowhere, you have somebody who says, oh, but have you heard about the 8th element? Ooh, and this 8th element is so powerful, it destroys all the other elements. But it lives on the power of the 7 elements. It's like, okay. Yeah. And we've never had this discussion before. We've never had this discussion before.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden,
out of
left field, which is what we got in episode 8 with this bad storytelling.
Yeah.
Well, when one side is stronger than the other side brings up
balance it back.
It's like that's not how it works. It's never worked like that. All of Star Wars.
Because then your Star Wars brain kicks in, and you're like, okay, I'm a Star Wars fan. You are a Star Wars fan, but you're asking for there to be consistencies within the writing. But so you're living through that world. Like, if that be the case, there are only 2 Sith Lords, and yet they overcame the whole Jedi Empire, then how is that balanced?
Exactly. The Sith, Palpatine overcame the Jedi through subterfuge, through casting in seeds of doubt in Anakin Skywalker.
And all it took was 2.
Exactly. All it took was 2. It took 2 because he had the ultimate trump card, Execute Order 66.
Yeah.
The ultimate trump card, because he was also in control of what? the Confederation. So it made sense on how Palpatine, or Sheev, if you want to call him that. I refuse to call him that. It made sense in how Palpatine overthrew everything through subterfuge, through carefully, because even though we quote unquote hate Episode 1, and because of trade deal disputes, that's how he came into power, because appealing to the Senate, winning the people, becoming a charismatic leader, he pulled people over to his side, lulled them into a false sense of security through not just using the new fleet given to them by the cloners on Kamino, but also spreading out the Jedi to which each master was by themselves. He got the Jedi completely away from everybody else and executed a carefully thought out and thought up plan. Versus Episode 8, when one side has too much force power, the force wills it that somebody else rises up.
Well, I think the problem with that whole story is that so nothing is ever going to end then, right?
Exactly.
So
basically,
the good guys are going to get the upper hand, and then there's going to be more bad guys come up, and then they're going to get the upper hand. It's just going to seesaw.
Exactly.
And then it's then what's the point of the movies? Like, if this is going to be a never-ending cycle, good guys get it's like watching politics, and this year the Democrats get voted in, the next year the Republicans voted in, and all they do is just
blame one another,
undo what the other guy did. It's what's the point?
I know what you did last summer.
So my whole thing is with that whole idea, it seems circular, and there's no progress that you actually make. It's sort of like even with Episode 9, Palpatine makes his return, and how did he come back? He brought himself back.
He brought himself, and he's broadcasting it.
When they kill him this time, can he just bring himself back again? And if he keeps bringing himself back, what's the point of the storyline anymore?
But it's I think, and that's where it's like I said, I love George Lucas. I really feel bad that he even ended up in that deal with Disney, where they've essentially taken his franchise and they've made it literally into. It went from being legendary status to where people were Star Wars weary, honestly. I see it happening. Their movies have been gradually decreasing in popularity. The only thing that has people really, really enjoying it of all things is The Mandalorian. Mm-hmm. And I think people fail to realize the reason why The Mandalorian is successful. Now that we talk about the bad storylines that we've seen, and there's plenty, guys, again, I have a variety of different bad storylines that I could tell you about. But at some point, we've driven this thing into the dirt so hard. Now we got to tell y'all about some good storylines. Great storylines to look at. Off the rip of my dome, if I'm talking about comic books, again, The Court of Owls, Batman, the New 52. Also Hush. Also, even with, like I said, House of X, Powers of X. Great comic book storylines, because they're building a universe, and you see the X-Men coming into their own. Court of Owls, you see a whole new villain being introduced, and you understand that these villains have been around a lot longer. Again, as a fan, I went ahead and I watched that movie that everybody talks about, Eyes Wide Shut, and it is a terrifying movie. And it's terrifying on an adult level. Oh.
Let's see if we can turn up the camera.
Oh yeah. Give us a moment here. I don't even know how to turn this thing off for a second. Let's see.
The mute option. Go to